All right, what is going on, Pats Nation? Everyone's going to start coming in here. I know we are behind the 8 ball. Trust me, I know this was supposed to start at 7. I'm not entirely sure where Patriots Football Breakdown is. Let me try to turn this down a little. Can you guys hear that in the background? Like, can you hear that the noise from the fan? If you can, I'll turn it off. But like, it's a hot day, so I'm hoping you guys can't hear that. But I'm not sure where Patriots Football Breakdown currently is. Hopefully at some point he'll come into the chat. We were supposed to start at 7. I was kind of waiting around for him. I was kind of hoping to wait, but I don't want to go a half hour with making you guys wait. I told you guys 7. So we're just gonna get started. Hopefully he'll pop in at some point. I tried getting a hold of him, but I'm not sure where he is. So if we end up doing today's live stream alone, we end up doing today's live stream alone. But like I said, hopefully I'll have somebody to bounce these ideas off. So, but what is going on, everybody? What's going on, Brendan? What's going on, Wyatt? Neil Ray, man, I really appreciate you for being here. Megan, the Stallion fan, what is going on? You're always one of the first people to comment on the videos. Poll, El Chivo, I believe I'm saying that right. Squidner, what is going on? Heather, Mason, Burley, yes, Nick Folk has returned. We will get into all of that, guys. Basically, what I'm looking today's live stream to be is we're gonna go each position by position. So we're gonna start with offense. We're gonna go quarterback. We're gonna go. Okay, I'm not exactly sure what the order is gonna be, but basically we're gonna start on offense. We're gonna go to defense. Then we'll get into the kicking situation. There's no point in getting into the punters or any of that. The only real special teams category we have is going to be kickers. That's really the only thing we genuinely need to talk about. So without further ado, that is what we are going to do. I'll also touch on the Cam stuff because I know it looks like some people are a little bit confused on what the whole Cam situation is and what exactly that means. So we're going to start with quarterbacks. Obviously, that's probably the most important topic here. So we are definitely going to start with that. Like I said, offensively, we'll go through that and then go to defense. Hopefully, Patriots Football Breakdown will be here shortly to be able to bounce some ideas off of. So I'm not kind of like sitting here for like an hour and a half talking to pretty much me alone. It would be nice to bounce some ideas off of someone. But let's just get started. Let me pull up my statistics. But I do appreciate everybody for being here, guys. If you can do me a favor, go ahead and just hit that like button here for me right now. It really helps the channel out. You guys sharing it also helps out a lot. So would mean a lot to me. But let's start off with quarterbacks like I mentioned. So I feel like probably the best thing to start here is the quarterback situation, more so with Cam Newton. What does today mean? So basically, Cam had some type of like medical doctor's appointment of the sorts that was outside of New England. Basically, the NFL has this protocol. On if you do leave like your state or whatever. So for Patriots, it would be, hey, if you do leave New England by yourself, you do have to have this kind of period where you stay away from the team for a few days. Long story short, without having to go into every single little itty bitty piece, there was some miscommunication between Cam Newton, between the Patriots, and between the NFL. Because of that, Cam Newton now has to sit out of practice or just can't show up for about 5 days. That's not the ideal situation for him. Obviously, in some ways, he is still fighting to make sure he secures that spot. I do believe that he will secure that spot 100%, that he is going to be the starting quarterback come week 1, and that it isn't this big competition where, hey, Cam Newton's out 5 days. He's likely now not the starter. No, that's not going to be the case. But this is Mac Jones' chance, if there is any case, for him to kind of staple himself into there. So basically what you can expect is Cam to be out for about 5 days. So he may or may not, doesn't look like he probably will be here for joint practice with the Giants, at least for day one. So if you're a big Mac Jones fan, this is the perfect prime opportunity for Mac Jones to really get these opportunities with the starters and to be the full-on starter, because Brian Hoyer's getting some snaps, but he's not getting half the snaps or a quarter of the snaps. He's getting very little snaps still, which means the majority of these offensive snaps are going to Mac Jones, and he's rolling with the starters. He's rolling with the starting offense, preparing for this upcoming game against the Giants. So, I mean, it's really good starting reps for him, and he's not having to split. So it's an ideal situation for Mac Jones, but, you know, unfortunately for Cam Newton, him being out, and it's not really Cam's fault is what I'm trying to say. Cam did everything right. The problem was miscommunication. There was just some misunderstanding between the three of them, between Cam, between the Patriots organization and the NFL. Because there was some misunderstanding, miscommunication, that's what led to this, but Cam didn't do anything wrong. It's just an unfortunate circumstance that, sadly, he got put in. But give me 1 second here. I want to get to this training recap. All right, here we are. Looks like I don't have anyone asking to join yet, so it doesn't look like Patriots Football Breakdown is here, at least yet. But as for this whole quarterback battle, my thoughts personally on that is you start Cam Newton. And I know a lot of people don't like the idea of that. A lot of people say, hey, the Patriots spent a first-round pick on Mac Jones. They should start him. But what you have to understand is you have to understand the comfortability point in that aspect of things also. At the end of the day, Cam Newton is a veteran. He's been in the NFL way, way longer than Mac Jones. And he's also been in the Patriots system longer. Now, do not get me wrong. Mac Jones, even if they plugged him in right now, he's a much better system fit for what the Patriots want to do now and going forward into the future. He's a much better fit than Cam Newton is. And that's not Cam's fault. It's just the style of quarterback he is versus the style of offense the Patriots want to run. It's just, they're just different. It's neither of their faults for their playing styles. But the Patriots are not going to just throw somebody in there who isn't ready, who isn't fully confident, just because he is a better styled quarterback for their offense. At the end of the day, you want Mac Jones to be your future. You don't want to plug Mac Jones in just because we're all eager to see him play. I get it. I'm eager to see Mac Jones be plugged in, be the starting quarterback of the New England Patriots, and see that development from where he was drafted and going on. Because from what we've seen, this offense is going to run a whole lot more smooth with Mac Jones into the fold versus Cam Newton. And again, that comes down to the different style of play both have. I mean, it's like trying to fit a square peg to a round hole. It's not going to work. As much as you try to budget, as much as you try to twist it and put it in different positions, it's not going to work because that's not where it's supposed to be. It's the same thing with a Cam Newton-styled quarterback versus a Mac Jones-style quarterback in a New England Patriots system and this offensive scheme. So what I ultimately believe the Patriots will do and what I think they should do is you start Cam Newton for the entirety of 2021. I think a lot of people are expecting Mac Jones to win 13, 14 games straight off the bat. And that's a lot to ask a rookie to do. Mac Jones today alone in practice without Cam Newton, he looked decent, but he didn't look great. And Mac Jones himself was asked by a reporter some question about, being the starting quarterback and getting these starting reps. And he said himself That's not really on his mind. That's more of a future thing. It's not what he's focused on right now. And he's focused on kind of just righting those mistakes that he's made. From that, personally, I took that Mac Jones himself doesn't feel ready to be the starting quarterback. And again, you don't want to hinder confidence and you don't want to hinder development just to throw somebody out there. Would you rather have maybe a decent season and get to see Mac Jones straight off the bat, but have his development hindered throughout the future of his career? Or would you rather have him sit for a year, come back in 2022, the starting quarterback, fully confident, gets to see what an NFL season is like, maybe even get some reps from time to time in garbage time, and come in when he's fully ready? Would you rather see that version of Mac Jones and potentially win us multiple Super Bowls, or a Mac Jones that you just threw in and potentially hindered the development of? Me personally, I'm focused on the future, okay? The Patriots this offseason built for the future. They have multiple guys under contract for many years. It's not like they just signed a bunch of one-year contracts. This is not just a one-year prove-it 2021 season. This is a multi-year extension for Belichick for multiple of these guys on the current roster. So there is no need to push for a Super Bowl in 2021. Do we want a Super Bowl in 2021? 100%. But at the end of the day, I'd rather have multiple Super Bowls in the long run than to just have one. And I think that's the name of the game here. So I do believe that Cam Newton does start the season. I think he's going to be a much better version of himself. What we have seen from Cam Newton, especially against the Eagles, was he's more comfortable. He's more decisive. Cam Newton himself said at the end of this past season that didn't really know the playbook, wasn't very confident in the system, what he had to do, and you could tell. He was always one step slow, probably even more than one step. He was like 2 or 3 steps slow behind. And he still performed decently. Didn't perform great, but he performed decently, especially for having to be the next quarterback behind Tom Brady. To fill those shoes, that's extremely tough, no matter who you are. So with Cam Newton finally getting a full offseason under his belt, looking a lot better, looking a lot more comfortable, looking more decisive, the team being able to kind of game plan more around, his style and have them divulge the full playbook with Cam Newton and not just parts of it and be a predictable offense. They get to do the entirety of it. And I think you're going to see a much better version of Cam Newton. There's still going to be growing pains. There's still going to be some issues. I think there's going to be times where people are calling for Mac Jones to be put in, calling for Cam's head to be out of New England. I think there's going to be growing pains, but I think ultimately we're going to have a better quarterback situation. Play Cam through 2021. Have Mac come in 2022, be your future. At the end of the day, you want him to be confident. And Mac Jones still making some rookie mistakes, okay? What we saw against the Eagles was a good showing, but we did learn that clock management wasn't great. And Josh McDaniels did take partial credit on that, but still at the end of the day, there's a big aspect within clock management that is very important for any quarterback of any playing style. And it's just these little things that Mac is definitely going to figure out, but not everything is figured out just yet. And clock management, very important in the NFL. I mean, to get the team down the field, to throw a ball to J.J. Taylor inbounds and then have to spike it on I believe, 3rd down and then have to punt the ball because of it, versus where you could have gotten a potential field goal attempt. I mean, that's the difference between winning and losing a game, going into overtime or winning a game. So just some things he still has to learn. But I just realized, guys, we also did not roll the intro. And it does not feel right to start a Patriots Global video without the iconic intro. So let's just roll it. Never get tired of it. Never get tired of it. But we just went on for about 15 minutes alone about the quarterback situation. Hopefully that cleared up a little bit of kind of how I feel about the situation and where it's going to go within the future. Again, it would have been nice to kind of bounce this back with someone, but I guess nonetheless, It's better to talk to myself than not to talk at all. But let's move. Oh, shoot. 1 second. Let's move on here to I believe we're going to move on to running backs. I think that's next on my list. Yes, we're going to talk about running backs. So the Patriots are going to be a run-first team. The Patriots added a lot of receivers in free agency. Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne. This is going to be a better passing team. But don't let these additions fool you for a second to make you think that this is going to be a pass-first team. No. You are still going to see the Patriots run the ball down the defense's throat. You're going to see them run the ball 8 out of 10 times because this is still a run-first offense. I think this passing league, the passing offense that the Patriots is, because this is a passing league in the NFL, it's going to take some time to continue to develop. It's going to be much better than last season. Do not get me wrong. It is going to be much better than last season. And that's not saying too much because it was terrible last season, one of the worst in the NFL. Cam Newton had more interceptions thrown than touchdowns thrown. But nonetheless, you try to get better each and every single offseason. And that's exactly what the Patriots did with making these additions. But I think it's going to help them more so in the long haul, not just in 2021. More so when Mac Jones takes over, 2022, 2023. That is when I think you're going to see more of the emergence of the Patriots receiving offense. Again, expect it to be better. Expect to see more of this receiving offense in 2021, but do not get it confused and don't expect it to turn into a pass-first offense. What we have seen from them utilizing Cam Newton, what we have seen from the running backs is that they still want to be running back by committee and that they still want to pick up yardage by running the ball. But they also don't want to be predictable, because if you can only do one thing, if you can only run the ball or you can only pass the ball, you're a predictable offense. If all you do is run the ball, they're going to crowd the line of scrimmage and you're not really going to get much done on the ground. If you are always going to pass the ball, they're going to have more DBs on the field, making it harder for you to get production from the passing game. Now, if you have the ability to be in both, they're not going to be able to stop both, which is going to help your offense progress down the field on a more consistent basis. And that is what the Patriots are looking to do in the 2021 season. Now, as for Ramondre Stevenson, I think that this is somebody that a lot of people have question marks about. Ramondre Stevenson, I think, kind of stapled himself in to either an IR season with some ghosted injury or whatever, or he'll make the roster, but won't get much playing time. Now, originally, when they first drafted him, I thought he could be a guy that they don't decide to redshirt. And when he started showcasing himself in the preseason, I started thinking that again. Now, we didn't see much of him in training camp, didn't hear too much also. It was more so towards the end that we finally did. And I said, it's looking like he's going to be redshirted this year. Then he started popping off in the preseason. Unfortunately, him fumbling against the Eagles was exactly what he could not do. It's not even that he had one opportunity, one chance. He had 0 chances. You make one mistake, sorry, buddy, chances are you're likely going to be redshirted. And I think that is exactly what he just did. He just kind of pinned the nail inside of his coffin, kind of bringing down his chances. At the end of the day, Pats Nation, I want to see you guys comment it. I'm going to see if you guys can guess this. What is the one thing? Well, there's multiple things that Belichick preaches, but what is the one thing out of any position that Belichick preaches that you cannot do? You cannot do. Let's see if you guys can get it. One thing. Anybody got it? I think poll. Oh, wait. Yeah, I mean, you guys are all coming at it. Yeah, ball security. Ball security. Can't fumble the ball. Got to keep hold on the ball. That is it. You guys got it right. Whether you said ball security, don't turn over the ball, you got it right. You cannot do that no matter what position you are. Quarterback, wide receiver, running back, even the defense. You cannot do that. And if you can't hold on to the football, your chances are going to be taken away. It's not, you fumbled once, we'll give you another chance. It's no, you fumbled the ball once, you're a liability we're going to hold you back for a little while. That's kind of a big thing that in 2017 happened with Mike Gillislee. His production wasn't great, but he started fumbling, and that's when his production got less and less and less. And then the Patriots just went, all right, you know what? We're done with you. And I'm not saying that's what's going to happen with Ramondre Stevenson, but if we're talking about him being a legitimate starting piece and a guy who's going to get considerable amount of snaps in 2021, that fumble was one of his biggest concerns in college. Ball security with him was one of the biggest concerns in college. And now that he showed that that's still a potential concern, I don't think that we're going to see much of Ramondre Stevenson this upcoming season, that he's likely going to be redshirted. He wasn't a first-round pick. If you're a first-round pick, the Patriots usually won't redshirt you, but if you're anything after that, unfortunately, they will redshirt you. So it could be one of those situations where we see him maybe a couple of snaps throughout the year, but it could also be a situation like we've seen with like Damien Harris, like we've seen with James White, where you just really don't hear from them at all their rookie season, because Belichick essentially just wants to make sure that you know what you're doing, wants to make sure that you're not a liability to the team. And again, it comes down to confidence also. It might be frustrating because you want to see these players so bad, but if your confidence gets hindered, you start performing a lot worse. A lot of people look at the physical side of football when the mental aspect and the mental side of football is just as important as the physical side. If you get inside your head, if you're not confident, if you're overthinking, you're constantly thinking about what you got to do and what move should you make rather than just moving instinctually, you're going to be one step behind the defense, and the defense is just going to clamor you. We saw this with Cyrus Jones. We saw this with Mike Gillislee. We've seen this with several other players who confidence just dropped, and then so did their play, so did their production. So I think that's what they're ultimately going to do with Ramondre Stevenson. They're going to play him a crap ton in the preseason, of course. There's no reason that they don't need to, but they do have that They do have that depth above Ramondre Stevenson, Sony Michel, Damien Harris, James White, potentially J.J. Taylor, Brandon Bolden. I mean, that's 5 guys already. 6 would be Ramondre Stevenson. There's no reason that they have to play him. With that being said, it just looks like a redshirted year is likely on its way now for Ramondre Stevenson. Has looked amazing in the preseason, but again, that's still preseason. And with the ball security issues now that he's shown, and even Ivan Fears himself a few weeks ago before the preseason said that Ramondre Stevenson's not where he needs to be. He's still kind of behind the 8 ball. He still needs to get more comfortable within the offense, and he's just not currently there. With that being said, with now the fumble, again, I just think that the staple has been put in for Ramondre Stevenson. As for who is the starting running back, Damien Harris, Sony Michel. I kind of talked about this a little bit yesterday in yesterday's live stream, so if you guys were there, you might know what I'm about to say. Ultimately, I don't really believe that there is truly one starting running back. You know, when you think of starting running back, you think of Ezekiel Elliott with the Cowboys. You think of Saquon Barkley and the Giants. You think of Derrick Henry and the Titans. You think of that guy, that workhorse who is going to get 90 to 95% of the carries each and every single week. The Patriots don't have that. The Patriots are running back by committee. The really only way that you are going to hear about, RB1 is going to be who the Patriots use in the red zone, who the Patriots use on goal line situations to punch the ball in for 6 points, because you're not going to see the Patriots pass the ball a lot in the red zone. They've always been a team who likes to run the ball in with their running backs once they get into the red zone, mostly because they don't want to potentially cause turnovers, interceptions, which is why they, again, like to punch the ball in using the running game. And from what we've seen, that's Damien Harris. But I think that's how you're going to calculate RB1. That's how the Patriots are going to calculate, RB1 is what running back are they going to use in that red zone goal line situations when they need to punch the ball in for 6 points. I think that guy is going to be Damien Harris from what we've seen in the preseason, what we have seen in training camp. They did try both Sony Michel and Damien Harris a lot in the red zone, a lot. on the goal line, seeing who would be more productive at punching the ball in for 6 points. Damien Harris was the guy that was more consistent because of that. And again, from what we've seen, I think that guy is going to be Damien Harris. But when it comes to getting legitimate rush attempts, you are going to see that pretty decently split between the two. I'm not saying it's going to be exactly 50-50. I think at the end of the day, Damien Harris does get a little bit more opportunities than Sony does, but you're definitely going to see those fairly split between Sony and Damien Harris. And I think it's an excellent usage of both the running backs, because the Patriots have both very good running backs in Damien Harris and Sony Michel, two very underrated running backs in the NFL. Let's remember that Sony Michel, his first 2 years in the NFL, put up over 900 yards. That was despite him having a down season his sophomore year, and despite him dealing with injuries his freshman year. He's a very good running back who continues to develop each and every single year despite that sophomore slump. And a lot of people give him hate, and I understand that there's been some frustrating points, but he's looked spectacular this offseason. Whether it's Sony Michel as a running back, whether it's Sony Michel as a receiving back, he looks better, looks more elusive, looks more instinctual than I have seen Sony Michel ever look. So I think that 1-2 punch of Damien Harris and Sony Michel is going to be one of the best in the NFL when it comes to 1-2 punches as running backs in this league. And keep in mind, when you do have a good 1-2 punch, it's going to just tire out that defense. It's going to tire out that defensive line, but it is going to keep both Sony and Damien Harris energized, rejuvenated, to be able to make sure every time they get a rush attempt, they aren't tired, they aren't sluggish. So I really think that this is going to be a year where we see this running back core pop off even more than we've seen it in the past. It is getting hot, so I might have to take this off, guys. I might have to take off my sweatshirt because it is getting hot as freaking here. I see you guys talking about, or not Sonny Michel, I'm sorry, but James White. James White, you are going to still see within the offense. I think this is a make it or break it year for James White. I know a lot of people have said, hey, is James White going to be cut? Is James White going to be traded? No, he's not going to be cut. He's not going to be traded. The Patriots are going to keep James White, but I think this is a make it or break it year in terms of what his future is like. James White, respectfully and understandably, had a bad year in 2020. Probably like one of the worst of his career. Paul, I see you about the chocolate milk. Unfortunately, your boy drank all the chocolate milk, so we're dealing with some like room temperature water here today, unfortunately. But again, James White had a pretty down year in 2020, was dealing with a lot with family issues, the pandemic and all that. So again, it's understandable, but even now you just aren't hearing about, you're not hearing too much about James White. And he has been dealing a little bit with catching the ball. And when you think of James White, he's not a great running back. He's not someone who's going to be rushing for 40, 50 yards, but he's very good in the receiving game, and he's very good with his ball carrier vision. That's the best attributes about James White. That's why they use him a lot as a receiving back, and they use him a lot in screen passes. That is going to be where you continue to see James White. When you need a running back to go out and catch the ball, or you need a guy for screen passes, you are going to see James White in those situations, but you're not going to see James White getting a bunch of carries each game like you're going to be with Damien Harris and Sony Michel. But if James White cannot have a better season compared to 2020, I think the Patriots cut their losses. And this honestly, even if he does perform well, could just be a season where the Patriots cut their losses with James White. I mean, I really do believe that this is James White's last year as a Patriot, unfortunately, and I love James White, but I just don't think that he is the same player in the Patriots offense and their system as he was when Tom Brady was here. And again, we haven't really seen much of a development from last year with James White, whether that's with Cam Newton or whether that is with Mac Jones. So ultimately, I do believe that the Patriots will have to search for a new pass-catching running back. Maybe that's J.J. Taylor. Maybe it's not. But I do believe that for this season, James White is going to be here. As for JJ Taylor, I don't think that he's a lock to make this roster by any means. He's someone who we heard a lot about, and I'm saying a lot about when it came to OTAs and minicamp. And I was expecting so much more from JJ Taylor when it came to training camp. And we heard absolutely nothing. We heard how he was getting, the majority of the snap times in OTAs and minicamp because him and Tyler Gaffney were the only running backs, and that he was looking a whole lot better from last year, looking like night and day difference, and that he was looking good at picking up blitzes and pass blocking, looking good in the receiving game, looking good in as a running back, and was just dead silent all of training camp. Has looked very good in the preseason. He's looked very good as a pass-catching running back. I think he's a good change of pace running back, but haven't really seen much of him outside of that. But as a receiving back, I think he's been really good with Mac Jones, a quarterback who kind of knows timingly when to give JJ Taylor the ball. Now, obviously, this isn't going to be a live stream where we answer like a bunch of questions like freely. But if you do genuinely want a question answered, we will be answering donation questions for today. We will be going live maybe later this week where I'll do like a chat talk back with you guys. But today's really just mostly a breakdown of the entire roster. But like always, for those who do donate, 100% you will get your donation chats answered. So big shout out to Die Hard Pats fan for the first donation of today's chat. A big donation too of $50. I really, really appreciate that, Die Hard Pats fan. That means a lot to me. Like I mentioned in yesterday's chat, your boy's been going through the motions. Okay, we're talking about football, but I'm going to pause that for a minute. Your boy's been going through a lot. Got in a car accident, trying to buy a new car, trying to figure so much out, and kind of obviously with this channel put things on hold for a little bit, finally getting back to it, and I'm more than excited to be back. And your guys' support is really what is getting me through everything. You guys, helping support the channel with donations, even if you just like the video, if you guys become a Patreon member for just $10 a month, where you can get exclusive benefits from me and the channel when it comes to New England Patriots content, helps me out more than I literally will ever be able to explain to you. So diehard Pats fan, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for that big donation. You said, need to get a chocolate milk sponsor. Come on, Hershey, Turkey Hill, Rose Burgers. Someone sponsor your boy at Patriots Global for sure, right? Like, I mean, I don't know why these, Nesquik, someone sponsor your boy for some chocolate milk, like I will drink like 2 to 3 half gallons of chocolate milk a week, because the amount of protein in chocolate milk is just, it blows my mind, and your boy needs a lot of protein to bulk up. But diehard Pats fan, again, huge shout out to you for that giant donation today. You are a real one, and I appreciate the heck out of you for that. I do know that somebody asked about, can you be a Patreon member with I believe you said $10. So for those who are interested in being a Patreon member, we do, I believe on Saturday, it's looking like we are going to be having a Patreon member only. So only those who are Patreon members, we're going to be having a talk back. I don't know if it's going to be on Zoom or Discord, but we're going to be doing a video chat where we're all just kind of talking about the Patriots, answering questions about this upcoming season, just our thoughts overall with the team. So if you want to get in with Saturday's chat, if you want to be added to the Discord, get exclusive content, all of that great stuff, Patreon member only live streams, make sure you become a Patreon member. $10 a month, that is all, and you guys get benefits in return. Helps the channel and me out an insane amount. Always a link in the description below for those who are interested in joining. Not mandatory at all, but like I said, definitely help support me in the channel. And of course, you guys get benefits in return. But let's move on to wide receivers now. This is a big one. This was a big one. Viral, I appreciate that. I totally didn't know it had that much salt in it. So I appreciate that, because I've been very thirsty lately. So that's probably why. But back to football. the wide receivers. And let me pull up the stats here for preseason. I can tell you guys statistically how the wide receivers have performed throughout the preseason. So overall, some guys that I've been pretty disappointed with. Let's just start off with that. Some guys I've been pretty disappointed with in the receiving game so far this preseason. I was hoping to see more from Christian Wilkerson, and I'm also disappointed with Nikhil Harry. Now, I do think there were a couple of times that I heard from the All-22 film that Nikhil Harry got open a couple more times, and it's either the quarterbacks didn't see him or he just wasn't, higher up in the progressions for the quarterbacks. But for the most part, if he was truly that wide open, his quarterbacks would have went his way. Ultimately, they really haven't. So Nikhil Harry has a total of 2 catches for 23 yards in 2 games. Now, of course, it did look like he was trying to pick things up against the Eagles. That could have potentially been a big game for him. A long pass from Mac Jones down the sidelines. Nikhil Harry goes for it. Should have caught that ball. That is not on Mac Jones. I saw some people blaming Mac Jones, saying he injured Nikhil. No, he did not. That had nothing to do with Mac Jones. The commentators themselves said it. That was a beautiful, accurately thrown ball for Nikhil Harry, something that Nikhil Harry should have made. Nikhil Harry, this is the type of player you are. You're saying the Patriots aren't using you right? Okay, well, this is how your college was using you when you were a first-round pick in the draft. This is what you are known for. Go and get that ball. And unfortunately, he couldn't. Now, he is going to be out for a couple of weeks with that injury, of course. Nonetheless, we do hope he is okay and he can come back, have a speedy recovery. Not an ideal situation for him at all. But I just expected to see more from him with a spectacular preseason, or not preseason, but spectacular training camp. Was really hoping to see more of Nikhil Harry in the preseason. And unfortunately, it doesn't look too different for Nikhil. As for Christian Wilkerson, he hasn't done bad. Do not get me wrong. Wilkerson has not done bad. 9 catches for 75 yards. But I have seen times where he should have caught the ball and he didn't. I mean, we've seen times where it was like a hitch and he just couldn't come back for the pass. There were times that, week 1 against the Washington football team, a beautiful, accurately thrown ball from Mac Jones in the end zone. He drops the ball, doesn't even look like he really tries to catch the ball in traffic. A catch he has to make and doesn't. I think if he makes his roster, it's going to be as a special teamer. It's not going to be as a wide receiver. And I haven't really seen too much from him on special teams either, but he wants to be able to play like all units on special teams, which is pretty hard to find. So I think Belichick will love that about him. And maybe that's how he still gets on the roster. But if he makes his roster, it's not going to be as a wide receiver. It's just not. He's going to be the last receiver on the depth chart, if you're not counting Matthew Slater, of course. But some guys that have impressed me, Gunnar Olszewski has popped off more than I was expecting, especially this past week is really when he popped off most. Didn't really see much of him in week 1, but week 2 in the preseason, he was targeted 4 times, catches all of those passes. Gunnar Olszewski has been nothing but reliable when he's targeted. 4 catches, 57 yards. He is averaging more than 10 yards per reception. I think he's looking really good out there. I think that he's actually more of a deep threat more than a short to intermediate threat. More like a I can't think of who I'm thinking of right now. He's not like a Julian Edelman. Maybe a little bit more Wes Welker. But I don't think he's as much Julian Edelman because he's more quicker than you would think. He's not so like quick with his feet and elusive off the line of scrimmage, but he's quick to the point where he can get down the field more. And I do hope to see more of Gunnar Olszewski in the passing game going forward because he's someone that I do think year after year does develop very, very well as a receiver. So hopefully he can continue to do that. I've seen some people ask, is like Gunnar Olszewski going to be cut? No. There is absolutely zero chance that Gunnar Olszewski ends up getting cut from this team because of what he is able to do as a punt returner. The Patriots don't have a punt returner really behind him. The Patriots don't even have a kick returner at this current time. Gunnar Olszewski was all pro as a punt returner. He's not going anywhere. Like I guarantee you that. I can promise you. that gunner is not going to go anywhere. So he's someone that has impressed me within the passing game. Haven't really seen too much from Kendrick Bourne. The moments we have, he just looks like an excellent route runner with a good route tree. I know week 1, he said he was disappointed in himself because he was nervous, new team, went out there and didn't perform the way he knows he can. Looked much better week 2. I think he's really going to be a good piece for this team as each and every single year goes on. So I am really excited to see him. But again, he's not someone who gets a whole lot of playing time because the Patriots do expect him to be a top 3 receiver for them. I have him pinned in as wide receiver 3, Nelson Aguilar, Jacoby Myers, kind of fighting for number 1. One of those guys will be number 2, and then Kendrick Bourne being number 3. He's had 2 catches for 36 yards. Isaiah Zuber is somebody who's had a really, really quiet offseason. And we were talking a lot about Isaiah Zuber being the wide receiver that made the final push to make the roster. Not because he's a great receiver, but more as a gadget player. Someone you use a lot on end arounds. You use in certain packages due to his speed. Unfortunately, we have not really seen any of that. I think ideally they'd want to get him on the practice squad. Hopefully he can develop a little bit more, maybe get him in the game day rotation because they can promote him from the practice squad with the NFL rules a couple of times. Maybe that's something that they would like to do. So I do think that if he does clear waivers, that they'll want to get him back on the practice squad. But at this point, Isaiah Zuber, he's not going to make the team. He has not shown anything ability-wise when it comes to a kick returner, punt returner, special teams in general. That hasn't helped him out. So I do think ultimately at this point, Isaiah Zuber and his potential with the Patriots is pretty much out. But I think other than that, we've really talked about all the receivers. I know a lot of people are asking probably about Jacoby Myers, and a lot of people think I'm snubbing him like in my videos because I don't really talk about Jacoby. Jacoby's Jacoby. There's really not much more to say about it. There's not much more I have to talk about when it comes to Jacoby Myers. Jacoby Myers is Jacoby Myers. He's getting better each and every single year. Like, it's like Tom Brady. And I tried to say this before. I'm not trying to compare the greatness of Tom Brady to anyone, especially Jacoby Myers. They're 2 different positions. But you never really talked a lot about Tom Brady because he was always a winner. He was always great. You know, he had to throw for like 500 yards for you to be like, wow, like he's a winner. No, like he's always a winner. He's just that great. That's kind of me with Jacoby Myers at this point. Like you just expect greatness from him. In this preseason, he's continued to look spectacular, reliable, 4 catches, 67 yards, and the only touchdown I think that we have seen receiving wise, I believe. Yeah, he's the only receiving touchdown that we've had in this preseason. So trust me, I'm not snubbing him. I think that he could be a legitimate case for wide receiver 1. And it honestly won't surprise me for Jacoby to be wide receiver 1. I know a lot of people are saying Nelson Aguilar, and I could really easily see it go either way. But I could see production-wise it going, kind of going with Jacoby Myers first and then kind of going down that list. So move on here to the tight ends. Let me pull up my information for the tight ends. Unfortunately, y'all, I'm not sure where Patriots football breakdown is, so it looks like it's going to be a solo ride on this one. Like I mentioned to you guys before, if anybody's new, this isn't really going to be a talk back that much. So if you do have a question that you really want answered, the best way to get that question answered is to become a Patreon member, or if you guys do donate, donations always get priority and always will get answered no matter what. Let's see. Here we go. So moving on to the tight end. If you guys saw my winners and losers video, you would know that Devin Asiasi was a loser on that video. I think the Patriots are going to roll with 4 tight ends. I think the Patriots are going to roll with 4 tight ends because this is really run, at least from what we've seen this offseason, is really run by the tight ends. This is run by 12 personnel, 2 tight end sets. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me for time to time to see the Patriots run 13 personnel, which is running 3 tight ends. With that being said, historically, the Patriots usually keep about 3 tight ends on the active roster, on the current roster, or the 53 rather. And because of the injury history, because of what we've already seen with these tight ends, we've literally seen all these starting tight ends deal with injury. We've seen Jonnu deal with injury. Hunter Henry has a big injury history. Devin Asiasi has had some injuries also. Because of that, I think they're going to want to keep 4 because of what they want to do offensively. Unfortunately, if the team does want to run a lot of 12 personnel, 2 tight end sets, they're going to need at least 2 healthy tight ends to be able to do so. And they really don't want to get in a position where they have to pick up some rando off of, free agency that, let's be honest, isn't really going to make a difference. With that being said, I think ultimately you have Hunter Henry, you have Jonnu Smith, you have Devin Asiasi, and you have Matt LaCosse. I'm very confident with those 4 guys coming in, Devin Asiasi and Matt LaCosse kind of being within that rotation. I know a lot of people are giving Matt LaCosse a lot of hate. He's looked very good this preseason, and he's always been a guy who has looked pretty good. He's always had some pretty decent shining moments. It's always been that injury history that's plagued him, not being able to stay healthy, not being able to get on the field because of the pandemic. He opted out of 2020. So unfortunately, we haven't been able to see a lot on him since he has come to New England. But when we have, and he's been able to stay healthy, he has shown good promise in the passing game. And from what I've heard in the offseason training camp, he's looking good as a pass blocker also. So I think that he's a really good depth piece that, again, if the Patriots want to run a lot of 12 personnel, that he's going to be able to come in and be plugged in from time to time as a nice depth piece. But as for Devin Asiasi, I know a lot of people too got my video confused. And guys, let me reiterate this. Never take a thumbnail and predict what the video is going to be. The thumbnail is meant to draw people in, to catch the viewer's interest, right? Don't get me wrong. I don't, what's it called? Clickbait or whatever. I'm not clickbaiting anyone. I'm not like Devin Asiasi out for the season, and it has nothing to do with that. Like, no. But some people thought, just based off of, they clearly did not watch the video, but looked at the title, looked at the thumbnail, and thought that I said Devin Asiasi was a deadbeat. He will not make this roster. He needs to go. And never did I once say that. In the video, I literally said that Devin Asiasi has progressed this offseason and that I have the Patriots keeping 4 tight ends, and Devin Asiasi was one of them. The Patriots are not going to cut Asiasi. The Patriots are either going to redshirt him or they're going to keep him on the roster. They're not going to just straight up cut him. If anything, they would have cut Dalton Keene before they cut Matt LaCosse, or not Matt LaCosse, but Devin Asiasi. They're not going to cut him. So let's just clear that up. I never said that about Devin Asiasi. Now, I don't think Devin Asiasi is going to become a all-star tight end. He's not going to become Evan Ingram. He's not going to become Jonnu. He's not going to become Hunter Henry. He's not a starting tight end, okay? I think at best, he's like an Austin Seferian-Jenkins. That's what I would see as best case scenario for Devin Asiasi. But he's not a starting tight end. And the Patriots knew that, and that is why they went out and they added 2 top 10 tight ends in this league. Devin Asiasi was drafted in a very bad tight end class. I am not sure why the Patriots decided to take 2 tight ends, trading up for one of them in the 3rd round, in a very bad tight end class. Me personally, I had a 6th round grade, a 5th to 6th round grade on Devin Asiasi coming out of that draft, or going into that draft. And the Patriots traded up into the 3rd to select him. So I do think that they pushed for Asiasi. I do think that he could be a good depth piece. I think that he could still be a good player, but do not expect Evan Ingram, a top tight end. It's not going to happen. He's not going to be a starting tight end for this team unless injuries present themselves, which you hope don't happen. Ultimately, though, I think the 1-2 punch of Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry is going to be spectacular. I think they complement each other very, very nice. And you just hope, you pray to God that both of those guys can stay healthy. The Patriots have dealt with a lot of injuries already. The injury bug is biting them in the butt yet again. It seems to always happen. Let's just pray to God that the Patriots are getting these injuries out of the way now and that this is not a sign of things to come. But that's kind of my thoughts here on the whole tight end situation. Making sure we got nothing else here that I'm missing. Oh, do we have a Vikings fan in here? But that's how I'm feeling about the whole tight end situation. I think moving on here, we think we have the offensive line, if I'm not mistaken. We did running backs, wide receivers, quarterbacks, tight end. Yeah, offensive line is the last position here we have for the offense. And then we're going to move into defense here. We're about 50 minutes into this, so I'm going to try to pick things up a little bit because I don't want this to be 2 hours. I was trying to make this about an hour to an hour and a half, and we spent almost an hour just talking about the offense. Offensive line, I think the starters are fine. We're going to be okay with what we have starting-wise. This is a top 3 offensive line if it stays healthy, but that is the key word, if it can stay healthy. Trent Brown doesn't look the same to me. I don't know what it is, but he just doesn't have that statue, that presence to him that he did his one lone year in New England. He just looks a little bit slower, and I think he's still going to be a great player. I know he gained a lot of weight in his contract. He had to drop a lot of weight this offseason because it was in his contract with the Patriots that he had to stay at a certain weight. And hopefully maybe he drops a few more pounds since week 1 and he can get a little bit faster, but just looks a little bit more slow and sluggish. But I do still think that he will be a good player for the team. I think that this starting offensive line is going to still be very good when you have Trent Brown, Shaq Mason, David Andrews, Mike Onwenu, and Isaiah Wynn. Especially that left side is very underrated. You would think that with the pros of Trent Brown and Shaq Mason, that the right side would be a lot better than the left. But we have had probably heard better things about the left side of the offensive line and the combination of Onwenu and Wynn and sprinting these blocks for the running backs more than we've heard from the right side. But you have Isaiah Wynn and you have Trent Brown, both that do deal with injuries on a pretty consistent basis. That is something that concerns me because the depth at tackle for the Patriots is something that concerns me. I've said this all offseason, is that there's 2 big things that concern me. Depth at offensive tackle and depth at cornerback. And we'll talk about cornerback once the defensive side comes up, so I'm not going to get into that now. But I think Justin Herron is a good swing tackle, a good depth piece here for the Patriots. If he needs to come in for a few games, that's okay. But you don't want him starting the entire season. But again, that's 1 tackle. The Patriots can put Onwenu out at tackle if they want to, but at that point, he's better at offensive guard. Okay, let's just say that. You don't want to kind of move your entire offensive line around and put players in places that they don't play to the best of their ability. Mike Onwenu plays much better at guard than he does tackle. He's decent at tackle, don't get me wrong. Like, he can play there if he needs to. But if you're looking to get the best out of your offensive lineman, you're looking to get the best out of your players, you want to play Michael Onwenu at left guard. The Patriots, I think, have good depth in the interior. I think when it comes to guard, it comes to center. I think they're going to be fine. James Ferentz, Ted Karras, those guys don't concern me even in the slightest. And for the most part, like Onwenu, Shaq Mason, those are guys that can pretty much stay healthy, David Andrews. So I'm really not worried about it. Just comes to these tackles. Not Corey Cunningham, but Yannick Kajust. He's not had a good offseason. Not at all. And as a 3rd round pick, you expected a lot more from Yadni. And I was hoping to see a lot more. But we also have to keep in mind, it's been years since he's actually had a snap of football. This is his first season back in multiple years due to injury. So you kind of have to give him a little bit of a break. Against the Eagles, played a spectacular game, had a clean game, didn't record any negative statistics, not a quarterback hit, a pressure, a sack, anything of those sorts. Hopefully he can continue to develop as that. but I'm not going to base his future and his ability off of one preseason game with, which the Patriots blew the Eagles out 35-0. So really outside of that, the Patriots have some question marks along the offensive line at the tackle position. But if the starting unit can stay healthy, it's top 3 and I have no concerns. But let's move on here to the defense. Let me check the chat. Looks like we got another donation here. Like always, if we do get a donation, donations take one heck of a priority. So Lulu Pats for Life with a $20 donation. You guys are coming out strong in this chat. Pats Nation, Patriots Global Fam, you guys come out hardcore. That's why I love you. You guys are loyal, and you guys just we make a family, y'all. We make a family. But you said, I know you were talking players and positions, but my buddy from Philly is busting on me saying they only lost because they weren't trying and used second and third strings. Can you please set my boy straight that we are gonna kick it? Yeah. Now, the Eagles lost because the Eagles are a bad team. And look, I get it. I'm in the PA range. So like Philadelphia Eagles fans everywhere. And let me tell you, the most annoying fan base in the NFL is the Philadelphia Eagles. I know some people could say the Patriots. Some people can say the Cowboys. Some people say Giants. But no. If you have been in Philly, if you have met Eagles fans, those guys are horrendous. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Me and my brother went Tom Brady's final year, Patriots versus Eagles. We are going to the bathroom. And this dude who has just obviously drank way too much is pure on threatening to end us. End us because we were wearing Patriots jerseys. At the end of the day, yes, there are rivals. There's 32 different teams, and they're all going against each other. But at the end of the day, the broad spectrum is that football as a whole is a family. Okay? It's nice to go back and forth with each other. It's nice to make bets. But at the end of the day, football is family. We all come together for the same reason. We might like different teams, we might root for other people, but it's a family, and they do not see it as that. They come hard. They come at your neck. They will jump you. As soon as me and my brother got in the car, and it's not just the guys. It is not just the guys. As soon as me and my brother got out of the car, this group of girls, these teenage girls, are just harassing me and my brother, taking off our Patriots gear and flinging it around and putting us on their stories and flipping us off. And we're just like, we are just trying to go watch a football game. Can you stop harassing me for 1 second? They were so annoying. And I just remember I was just like, the Patriots won, and I was just like showing all the Eagles fans on my story being mad, and they're all just like flipping me. It was if we lost that game, it would have been I would have had to find an emergency exit somewhere, because there's no way I was going to be able to stay alive. So if you ever go to an Eagles game, dear God, Pats Nation, stay safe. Stay safe. But the Eagles were not going to. Okay, so I'm not gonna lie. I was somewhat surprised. I was surprised. I'm going to say somewhat. I was surprised the Patriots blew the heck out of the Eagles. From what we saw in practice, I was expecting this to be a closer game, but the Patriots are a lot better than the Eagles. Hands down. Now, the Patriots had starters in there for longer than the Eagles did, and I know they didn't have Jalen Hurts in there. Joe Flacco, though, is a veteran quarterback who won a Super Bowl and Super Bowl MVP, so it's not like you had some run-of-the-mill free agent quarterback who was a UDFA, so let's not act like that was the case. You do not see preseason blowouts, even with the best teams in the league. The Bills, the Chiefs, the Packers, the Buccaneers. They're not blowing these teams out of the park in the preseason. You don't see blowouts in the preseason. They're relatively close. For the Patriots to score 35 points, and let's remember, if Quinn Nordine makes all of his kicks, it's actually 40-some to 0. So the Patriots realistically should have put up 40-some points to a Eagles 0. That says more about the team and not just, hey, this is second, third, and fourth strings are going up against. Let's not act like the Patriots had starters in there the entire time. But to blow a team out like that comes down to more than just, hey, it's a preseason game. If they put in their starters, we still would have won. You had your best receiver, Devontae Smith, in there. You had Jalen Reagor in there. You weren't going to win that game. So, Lulu Pass for Life, I do appreciate that donation. A big, big shout out to you for your $20 donation. Much love. You're always supporting me in the channel. So really, really appreciate it. Like I said, stay safe out there. And, just stick up for the Patriots, man. These Eagles fans, they're delusional. I'm telling you. I've not met a single cool Eagles fan. Unfortunately. Thanks for setting my friend straight, even though he ain't going to give in. I told him we will take it to the field and see what happens again when we win. You can get back to your players. Yes, sir. Lulu Pats for life. You bottoms up, my friend. Bottoms up with water. All right, let me get back here. Defensive line, though. Defensive line is spectacular. Holy dear God. To say night and day of a difference is underrated. I can't find the genuine, accurate term to say what this defensive line is, because it is night and day and even more than that. We're talking about sunshine to pure midnight darkness. This defensive line is stout. From the starters to the second stringers to just the depth in general. What the Patriots have done in one offseason is mind-blowing. And I can even tell you the depth we have right now. I'm going to tell you the depth on this defensive line. So, Lawrence Guy, Dietrich Wise, Tashawn Bauer, Montravius Adams, Nick Thurman, Bill Murray, guys who probably won't make the roster. Devon Godchow, Henry Anderson, Carl Davis, Chase Winovich. We'll see what happens with Byron Cowart and Akeem Spence. I think probably one of these roster bubble guys ends up making it, whether that is Montravius, Carl Adams, Akeem Spence, or Byron Cowart. And like I said, Henry Anderson and Chase Winovich. What the Patriots have depth-wise, even with guys like Dietrich Wise, Lawrence Guy, and Henry Anderson, guys who are so versatile with all over the defensive line. You can play on the interior, you can play on the exterior at defensive end. And then behind your starters, having guys who are quality pieces that could be starters elsewhere, something this team has not had in a while. We have been relying on Lawrence Guy being truly the only high-end defensive lineman we've had. Now, Dietrich Wise is great. Do not get me wrong. I think he's still developing as a good player. But the Patriots needed a true defensive tackle next to Lawrence Guy, and they never had that. Adam Butler was a great pass rush defensive tackle. That was it, though. He never took that next level as a defensive tackle to be able to stop the run. He got bullied when it came to stopping the run. He was a one-dimensional defensive tackle, and I think that's why the Patriots moved on from him. I don't think it's that the Patriots didn't want him, because he didn't get a huge actually, no, I do think it's because the Patriots just kind of wanted to move on from him and go a different route with their defensive line, because the contract he got with the Dolphins was not anything crazy at all. At all. The Patriots easily could have matched that, especially with what they did this offseason, but they chose not to, which made me think they're okay with Adam Butler moving on. And then from what they picked up in free agency and the draft, I'm completely okay with it also. You have a very good 1-2 punch of Devon Godchow and Lawrence Guy. Henry Anderson, I think, is another very elite addition for the Patriots. And I'm not saying elite in the sense of you're going to see him put up 8, 10 plus sacks on the season, but he has been a very consistent and an elite defender, whether it's interior or edge defender, at stopping the run. And that's probably the biggest thing that the Patriots needed help with, was stopping the run. One of the worst in the league last year at stopping the run. That's actually why I think they lost so many games, because if you can run the ball successfully, the team that can be more successful offensively and can run the ball more successfully is who's going to win the game at the end of the day. If you can run the ball successfully, you can easily pick up yardage, and most importantly, you control the game. You control clock management. You control the timeouts. You control where this game is headed, how long you want to stay on the field. You can easily take up half a quarter in one drive offensively if you can run the ball successfully. Easily. And unfortunately, the Patriots couldn't stop the run to save their lives, especially against more elite running backs. And that's not the case, I think, with this defensive line and the upgrades that they have. I'm going to be really curious to see certain guys and how this rotation is going to work, especially with why do I not see? For some reason, I actually don't see Carl Davis, Akeem Spence, Chase Winovich, Anderson, Lawrence, Guy. I don't see their second round pick in here for some very odd reason. I'm blanking on his name right now for some reason, and I'm not sure why. Why am I blanking on his name? I cannot remember his name right now. Christian Barmore. Thank you. Yo, you guys already know, if you've been on my channel for a while now, that like multiple concussions just like have my head just like straight line blanking out at times. But yes, Christian Barmore. I don't know why he's not on the Patriots depth chart. It's not for concern, but I have no clue why they don't have him on the depth chart. But so many pieces where not everybody you're going to see get a whole lot of playing time. Christian Barmore, I think, is very dependent on how he decides to play. I don't think he played great against the Eagles, which was his first game. Again, that was his first game back from some injuries and missed some time. So I'm not expecting anything huge from Christian Barmore in year one. I think he'll get into the rotation. I think best case scenario, he slips into that Adam Butler role for year one, but I'm not expecting anything more. But like I said, I think it's very dependent on him, on how much he plays. But real quick, we do get a donation here. Another one from my boy, longtime subscriber, longtime supporter, my brother here, Neil Ray. You said Jets fans are nuts too. 8 wanted to hurt me in the bathroom. I was like, talk to me when you get rings as much as us. I was like, suck on them rings, LOL. Yeah, honestly, Neil, if you're gonna go to a game, my guy, you need to like buy some like Patriots replica rings and just don't even gotta say anything to them. Just be like, and then just wave by. That's all you got to do at that point. I was with somebody at one point whose family was Jets fans. I felt so superior because, who in God's name genuinely wants to be a Jets fan? I mean, props to you if that's just how you grew up and you're sticking to your morals. But if anyone wants to be a Jets fan and switch to the Jets, I'm concerned for your mental state. I cannot be a Jets fan, dear God. But the fact that Jets fans would want to hurt a Patriots fan is the dumbest thing, because they are not a successful team. And when's the last time they were a successful team? But Neil, buddy, I'm glad you're okay. Thank you so much for the donation. Thank you so much for constantly supporting me and the channel, my brother. Really appreciate you, and thanks for being here, my guy. But back to the defensive line here. I think Dietrich Wise is a much bigger part to this defensive line than a lot of people give credit for. He's been sneaky good since drafted. I don't think he's taken that next level approach that we're all waiting for. He got a pretty big contract. It's like, what was it? 4-year, 26 million, 24 million, something like that. I think he's making like $6 million a year. So the Patriots gave him a pretty nice contract, which showed me that they like him. They like his versatility. I think he's good at stopping the run and getting to the quarterback. I'm just hoping that he can take that next level at some point. But I do think something that also goes underlooked is now that the Patriots have a vamped linebacker core, the Patriots have a vamped defensive line, that is going to help guys get open. If you only have one good guy, it's hard for other guys to make plays also. But if you have multiple good guys along that defensive line, you have guys in the not the backfield, but if you guys have guys right behind the defensive linemen in the middle of the field, your linebackers who can also be elite and come up and make plays, you don't have enough offensive linemen. You don't have enough running backs, fullbacks to be able to compensate for all of that. If you have guys that can favorably match up in one-on-one matchups and even double coverage, you are going to see a lot of guys getting more open, and maybe that can help a guy like Dietrich Wise make more plays, which is why I'm not sure exactly which player I believe will break out 100%, but I do believe that this could be like a 2019 season where we just see this defense go off. I think we're going to see a lot of these Patriots in the backfield a lot when it comes to these opposing offenses. So honestly, the defensive line is probably the most excited thing that I'm excited to watch for this upcoming season. It is spectacular. The depth, the starting pieces, I mean, everything from head to toe. This defensive line has the potential to be one of the best in the league. And it's not because the Patriots specifically have one of the best defensive linemen in the league, but because they have so many good starting and backup pieces that they can always swap guys in and out to have those defensive linemen refreshed and always playing at a high level, that I think this will be one of the best defensive lines in the league. I think they'll be top 10. But let's move on here to linebackers. Now, like I mentioned, linebackers I think heavily got vamped up. The addition of Dante Hightower is going to be huge, more than people realize, more than I'm not going to lie to you, more than I originally gave credit for. Also, Dante Hightower came back looking slimmer. And why does that help the Patriots? Because he looks faster. Dante Hightower was so big, and I'm not saying he was like fat or anything like that, but his style was always a set the edge downfield defender, because he was always too slow. He's always too sluggish to be able to play well in coverage. I think it was the 2017 season, I believe, before he got hurt, where we saw him in coverage, and anytime he had to go up against a running back, just constantly burned. You did not want Dante Hightower in coverage. You did not want him covering running backs out of the backfield. You wanted him on edge, or you wanted him blitzing. That was it. Because he slimmed down, he looks much faster. He's playing very well in coverage. He looks much more agile, and he just looks healthier. I think that year off for 2020 gave him a minute to be able to just reset everything, to give him a minute to just sit back, heal up, give him a whole year for it, and he looks a whole lot better, not to mention what he's going to do from the mental aspect. The veteran presence on the field, close to the line of scrimmage, is going to help the Patriots out tremendously. That is easily something they missed. I believe it was Patrick Chung who mentioned there was at one point he picked off somebody. I forget who it was and in what game, but he said the only reason I made that interception was because Dante Hightower called out exactly what they were going to run before the snap was called, and I was able to jump the route and pick off the ball. So I think with, Hightower, with McCourty as these veteran presences, this defense is definitely going to take the leap forward. Kyle Van Noy, I have some questions actually about Kyle Van Noy. The Patriots are using him as an outside linebacker, and I think that's a big mistake. They used him at outside linebacker in 2017 and 2016 before he kind of took that big leap forward with the Patriots. And I would advise the team not to do that, not because he can't do well in coverage, but because if you want to get the best out of Kyle Van Noy, which the Patriots are the reason Kyle Van Noy got a big contract with the Dolphins originally, you know how to use him, so utilize him correctly. I think you have the depth to be able to play other guys at linebacker, whether that is left outside linebacker, whether that is middle linebacker. So have Kyle Van Noy be a guy that sets the edge. Have Kyle Van Noy be a guy that that blitzes through the middle, because that is what you're going to get the best out of your players. You don't want to ask him to do something that is going to hinder the best version of Kyle Van Noy. If you're going to sign a player, you clearly want to get the best out of him. And the best way to do that with Van Noy, which again, New England knows how to do because they're the reason he's developed as well as he had, set him on the edge, have him blitz. That is how you're going to get the best out of KVN. The Patriots, again, I think have the defensive line to be able to get that pass rush, but you put a guy like Kyle Van Noy, Matthew Judon on both sides, and it gets that much better. Speaking of Matthew Judon, if the Patriots do want a guy to put in coverage at left outside linebacker, at middle linebacker, put Matthew Judon. Can we talk about Matthew freaking Judon for a minute? That man has looked like more than a home run signing by Bill Belichick. And I actually went back and I watched that Ravens game, Patriots and Ravens this past season, where the Patriots won in the trenches. And I forgot who the commentator was, but he calls out Matthew Judon being a free agent at the end of the season and how Belichick should jump on him, how it would be the perfect Bill Belichick signing. And it was. Now, personally, I liked Matthew Judon, and I thought about Matthew Judon to the Patriots, but I was just like, nah, like Bill's not going to want to pay that money. And Bill paid that money. Bill gave him a huge contract, one of the highest paid edge defenders in the league, and was one of the first free agents that they actually signed. So clearly Belichick always liked him. Whether we are talking about stopping the run, making plays behind the line of scrimmage, whether we are talking about making plays in coverage, dropping back into coverage, whether we are talking about pass rush, Matt Judon does it all. He can play everywhere. You want to play him at DE? You want to play him at stand-up linebacker? You want to drop him into coverage? He has already shown us, not with the Ravens, but even already with the Patriots, that he can do that. He is the definition of an all-around linebacker. And this is what the Patriots needed. The Patriots also needed that future guy. We don't know what Dante Hightower is going to do after this season. Is he going to retire? Is he going to want a massive contract and the Patriots go, now we're good? I don't know. I don't know what to say about that right now. But at least we know that they have that veteran presence. And I think they have an even better version of a Dante Hightower when it comes to a player, not a veteran's presence on the defense, but from a player standpoint, Matthew Judon is obviously a better all-around linebacker than any linebacker the Patriots currently have on that team. I am comfortable with him setting the edge. I'm comfortable with him playing at linebacker. I'm comfortable with him in coverage. The speed for a guy his size is unbelievable, and the plays he is already making was something I was not expecting. I expected big things from him, but I wasn't expecting him to make so many plays with just so much limited opportunity. He's going to be such an important piece to this Patriots defense as we go forward. He's going to help guys get open, but I think guys in the opposite side of that, guys are going to help him get open. And I think that this could be a really, really stout year for him. And I actually believe that Matthew Judon, I'm going to make a hot take here. I think Matthew Judon is going to lead the Patriots in sacks this upcoming season. Maybe that's not much of a hot take, but that's a take of mine, that I think the Patriots and Matt Judon is going to be the leading sack leader for the Patriots, and that he is going to make a Pro Bowl with the team also. I'm curious on what you guys think of that. But to talk about these other linebackers here, Josh Uche is someone that has had a lot of promise this offseason. I think we saw some good moments as a pass rusher in the preseason, but he's been dealing with some injuries. Now, it's not expected to be anything serious, anything that's supposed to sideline him for a long time, but he got banged up week 1, got banged up again week 2. Injury concerns are showing to be a big thing here for Josh Uche, and hopefully that's not a sign of things to come also. But I thought he was going to have a big year this upcoming season too. So hopefully he's able to stay healthy. He can get out there week 1 because he's going to be a big piece also. We talked about Chase Winovich being not much of an edge defender, but being maybe someone they try to place more at linebacker, like middle linebacker, because He was so much of a one-dimensional edge rusher, great at rushing the passer, got bullied when it came to stopping the run. We do know he tried to put on some weight this offseason to compensate for that. We'll have to see if that is a change that helps him or a change that didn't really make much of a difference. But he's a player that I thought could be someone they move more so to linebacker, play stand-up linebacker at that middle linebacker position. We haven't seen that. Now, granted, Chase Winovich was not here in minicamp or training camp, but I think because of that too, they're going to keep him really at edge defender. Maybe time to time you'll see him at middle linebacker, but I think the most part you're going to see him there at edge defender. The Patriots have been putting Josh Uche not too much at edge defender, but more so as a linebacker in coverage at stand-up linebacker. And I thought that was really interesting. I thought Uche was going to be someone that was mainly an edge rusher. Maybe they put someone like a Winovich at middle linebacker, but it seems like they're okay with Uche playing more linebacker than I was personally expecting. Now, something I do want to touch on lastly here about the linebackers is what is the future going to be now that not Montravius Adams, but your boy is just like going full on blank mode today. Linebacker tore his ACL, out for the season, whose name, again, for some reason, your boy is just like totally blanking on right now. I know you guys are all going to like say it. McMillan, Raekwon McMillan. Yes, Crispy Chris, you got it. Raekwon McMillan. With Raekwon McMillan being out for the entire season, I think this opens the door. I think this opens the door for somebody like Harvey Langi. Now, I'm not saying Longi's going to make the roster. I think that Longi's had a pretty good camp, and he's definitely stood out at times, both positively and negatively. And I think that he had both a positive and negative week 1 against the Washington football team. He made some good plays, but he also made some not good plays also. I think week 2 was much better for him. He had a standout game, an interception, multiple sacks. He's making his case heard. Also, because he can play special teams. That's where he started. That's why he was making NFL rosters at one point. And he was a legitimate starting defensive piece for the Jets this past season. I think Raekwon McMillan was really penciling himself into being that starting piece, one of those starting rotational pieces at linebacker, ultimately making the 53-man roster. Now that he's out for the season, I think there's a potential to add someone somewhere else. But I don't think that this is a situation where the Patriots went, okay, well, Raekwon McMillan is out, so now we have to find another linebacker. I don't think that's what that was. I think what this means is that Harvey Langi is competing with other Patriots players at other positions to make this final roster. If Langi does make this roster, I think he's one of the last guys, somewhere from like 49 to 53 on the Patriots roster, which means he's going to be competing with guys like Montravius Adams, Carl Davis, Christian Wilkerson, Isaiah Zuber, guys like that who are fighting to make a roster spot on the roster bubble, fighting with those guys to make one of these final spots. But if he can continue to play how he does, mixed along with his special teams ability, I don't see why he doesn't have the potential to make this team. And I think if he doesn't make the team, he is the ideal practice squad candidate. But I do think that there's a good potential that another team would pick him up. And I do believe too, like at this point, I don't care if they move on from Brandon King. Brandon King suffered a serious injury a few years ago, finally came back this year. I have heard absolutely zero from Brandon King. Zero. Haven't even seen him on the field. I think it's better to just let go of Brandon King, bring on a guy that can also play special teams, but can also give you legitimate reps at linebacker on your defense, which is something Brandon King, let's be real, isn't going to do. So I would honestly, if it came down to Brandon King or Harvey Langi, I would put in Harvey Langi there. I think the Patriots have enough special teamers, starting special teamers, to be able to compensate for that anyway. But moving on to cornerbacks here. A lot of people are going to ask about Stephon Gilmore. Understandably so. Do not get me wrong. I 100% understand. Guys, there's been no movement in Stephon Gilmore. Absolutely nothing since the last time I think I made a video on this, which was a couple months maybe. We don't know what the current status is. From what Belichick said today in the press conference, he's doing everything he can to come back from injury, and it's day to day. I personally wonder, is Gilmore not back because he seriously is genuinely dealing with this injury and still coming back from that? Or is that kind of the Patriots' scapegoat and it is more contract dispute? That's just speculation. Obviously, I don't know. Nobody does. That's something only Belichick and the Patriots coaching staff and the people within the team would know. But I do think that because the Patriots have like 1 to 2 weeks extra now that there isn't a 4th preseason game, that is the prime time. Nothing's going to be happening. The team is going to be preparing for week 1. That is the prime time to figure out Stephon Gilmore. That's when I think something's going to happen. I think because the Patriots haven't picked up another free agent, they haven't made a trade, they didn't draft another cornerback, Stephon Gilmore is going to be back for at least 2021. I firmly believe that. Whether the Patriots get a contract extension done with him or they just bump up a few million for 2021, I think ultimately Stephon Gilmore plays with the New England Patriots in at least 2021. My ideal hopes is that they get an extension done with him or JC Jackson so that they both aren't hitting free agency at the end of the season, because I don't think that's going to bode well for the team. But at least I think we will have Stephon Gilmore for 2021. I do think that we will see a even better version of JC Jackson. If JC does have to play as CB1, I definitely think it's going to be an up and down season for him. We're going to see some great moments, but we're also going to be some moments where, like, dear God, he should not be playing CB1. So I'm hoping it doesn't get to that point. But for him to be getting CB1 reps all off season, all training camp and preseason, I think is going to really, really help him out in developing to, at some point become a CB1, whether that's for the Patriots or another team. But even if he's CB2 with the Patriots, getting all these reps as CB1 is going to help him tremendously. And have even a better season next to Stephon Gilmore. So I'm expecting only good things from him. Juwan Williams has impressed me this preseason. He went up against Devontae Smith and only allowed 1 catch. 1 catch for 18 yards against a first-round Heisman winner from Alabama. Now, he wasn't impressing me throughout training camp. I didn't think there was anything spectacular from Juwan Williams in training camp. He always looked mentally 1 step behind. But he is looking like he could genuinely be the guy who takes over as CB3. Now, I don't want him as CB1, and I'm not comfortable with CB2 right now, but as CB3, I think that is an excellent role for Juwan Williams for this upcoming season. Take over that Jason McCourty role, and at least for 2021, I think that is an excellent place for Williams to be put. I think that the Patriots have had so much depth. They've had Jason McCourty, who you're not going to play Juwan Williams over Jason McCourty. And then Stephon Gilmore and JC Jackson taking up those CB1, CB2, and CB3 that you never really needed Juwan Williams, and he wasn't really getting too much of a chance. Now that Gilmore's out for right now and that Jason McCourty left for the Dolphins, there's more than enough opportunities for Juwan Williams. And I think because of that, it's been a little bit overwhelming, but he's progressed a lot more now that he's been given these opportunities. And I don't want to say we're finally seeing the emergence of Juwan Williams, but I think we are definitely seeing much more potential compared to what we have seen since he was drafted. As for Jalen Mills, I know people are going to be tough on Jalen Mills here, and I understand. I think he's someone who also is pretty inconsistent. He shows some promises, but then he's going to go out there and you're going to be like, dear God, why are the Patriots putting him in coverage? Kind of like a Eric Rowe situation, but I've compared this to several times. Eric Rowe made some really good plays, and then next minute he's fallen over and letting up a 50-yard touchdown. So I think that's kind of what you're going to get with Eric Rowe. Eric Rowe was never a guy you wanted in coverage. He's always been an amazing guy that the fans just love. In Philly, even now, Patriots fans love him. He's a great guy. He's flying all over Belichick. But you don't want him as CB1. You don't want him as CB2. I think at best, you want him CB3. But I want to see more of Juwan Williams at safety. That is where we saw a better version of Jalen Mills with the Eagles, was when he was playing at safety. I'm not exactly where I would put him at safety right now. Probably would be wherever Kyle Duggar isn't. So if they want to put him at hybrid linebacker, maybe going again up against the tight ends, or if they want to have him be the guy that goes and plays some free safety, whatever the Patriots decide to do, I think they have a good amount of depth at safety. So a starting role, I don't know, is probably more rotational for Jalen Mills at this current time. Devin McCourty is obviously not going to come off the field. I think Miles Bryant is going to definitely get in the rotation. Is Kyle Duggar, where exactly are you going to place Kyle Duggar? Are you going to keep him against tight ends, which they did last year, or are they going to have him go back to where he was in college, playing more free safety? That is kind of to be determined. And even Kyle Duggar at this current time does not know. He's played at both, played more free safety than we saw last year, though. So maybe the Patriots are placing him there now. But if Jalen Mills is going to play anywhere, I want to see him more at safety, because at cornerback, it's just, he's not a guy you want to put up against Odell Beckham Jr. He's not a guy you want to put up against DeAndre Hopkins. You don't put him up against elite wide receivers in this league. It's not going to bode well for you, especially like a Tyreek Hill or a DJ Shark. Like, you don't want to put him up against a fast receiver also, because he's going to get burned. But very, very versatile, very versatile. And I think that's why Belichick signed him to a contract. And it might take a little bit of time for things to fully grasp with Jalen Mills, and might be some time where, he takes a minute to fully find a role with the Patriots. But I think at some point within the 4-year contract, he'll figure that out. Fight for Football, what is going on, guys? If you don't know Fight for Football, go ahead and check him out. Covers everything, all NFL coverage for you guys. So if you guys are interested in everything NFL, just go ahead and check out my boy. He covers everything, does a really good job. It gets everything out very fast too. So go ahead and check him out for all of your NFL needs. I don't think OBJ is necessarily elite, but I think that he's still a higher end player. Like, he's still a better wide receiver than most in the league. But yes, Adrian Phillips also. Who I would like to see go up against tight ends is Adrian Phillips. I think Adrian Phillips has done spectacular with that in training camp. He's someone who I think is a genuine contract extension candidate, and someone I would love to see get a contract extension. He's someone I want to see up against tight ends. Place Kyle Duggar at free safety, and then Jalen Mills can kind of be a rotational piece and also a depth piece, and someone you're going to see a good amount on special teams. Anytime, brother. Anytime. Big shout out here to my boy Neil Ray for the $5 donation. My brother here standing out again. You said, cheers, bro. I start my new job as an account manager on the 30th. I will get the bag. I will donate heavy, bro. October, September. I will make it rain. My brother, I always appreciate that, and I appreciate you. Everybody, give a huge congratulations to my boy Neil Ray, an account manager. That is some big talk, my guy. That is something I could never do. Me and numbers just do not go down well together. I hate numbers, man. I hate it. Unless we're talking about like statistical football numbers. I'm good at that, but if we are talking about like math, oh hell no, get me out of here, man. Get me out of here. So I respect what you are doing, Neil. I respect it completely. And my brother, I appreciate you like always for being here and supporting me throughout my journey, man. I mean, you've been here from the start and you're still here. Nothing but love for you, my brother. Nothing but love. Adrian Colbert. Yeah, he's somebody who I definitely want to get to. He's probably next on my list. But Adrian Colbert made a nice play against the Eagles, but I don't think that solidifies his position. Again, I don't think it was anything that was a standout play. It was a good play, but it wasn't a standout play where you're like, wow, that was an amazing play by Adrian Colbert. Obviously a veteran, which I think helped bode well for him a little bit more, but I'm not expecting him to make the roster. If he does, he's also one of those guys who's last on the list. I think he's somebody that isn't going to get cut until final roster cutdowns, and it's still going to be one of those harder guys to cut that the team essentially would like to keep. We'll have to see how he performs in joint practice with the Giants. We'll have to see how he performs in the final preseason game against the Giants. But ideally, that injury did not help his chances at making this final roster. I think the Patriots, again, do have pretty good depth right now at safety, at least for 2021. How exactly would he get on the roster against, Jalen Mills, against Kyle Duggar, against Miles Bryant? Not 100% sure. So I'm not sold on him making this roster at all. But I think we got there to really all of the safeties, which lastly here is going to bring on special teams. Now, for those who are in the Discord chat, My family, you know, we talk about Quinn Nordin all the time. All the time we talk about Quinn Nordin. Quinn Nordin put the staple in his coffin, guys. I hate to say it. I hate to be that guy. Nick Folk is back at practice like we guys were talking about in the beginning. At the end of the day, you want to go with a guy who can only kick from the 40, but can do it consistently, than a guy who can kick from 60 yards plus who can do it inconsistently. Again, the Patriots should have had 40-some points up on the board against the Eagles if Quinn Nordin does not miss his kicks. And the problem is that it wasn't just one bad game like some people want to talk about. He's had some good moments in both of these preseason games, but he's had misses in both of these preseason games. And unfortunately, that's pinning the nail in your coffin. We've seen Belichick release kickers after one missed field goal. He's missing field goals, extra points. I think ideally they put him back on the practice squad. They hope that they can get him more consistent because he's a really good player, but they just have to pin in consistency. And at the end of the day, that's one of the most important at any position in football is consistency. And if Quinn Nordin cannot become consistent, they're not going to put him out there. So I do think that this is Nick Folk's job, definitely, as long as he's healthy. This is definitely his job. But I think that covers everything. I do want to quickly give a shout out to the sponsors of this channel who have been sponsors and supported me for a while now. BetOnline.ag. Now, BetOnline, fastest, easiest ways to bet on all of your sports action. Football back, multiple other sports making their way back to. Can bet on all of that great stuff. The BetOnline even has awards, TV shows, and reality TV you can bet on with real-time updated odds and props on almost anything you can imagine. And they also have you covered for all of the new scores and odds. Best way to place your bets is completely free to sign up. If you use that promo code CLNS50, you'll get a 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. Again, online sportsbook experts. But guys, that is going to end it for today's chat. I want to thank everybody who is here. I especially want to thank everybody who is here for the hour and a half that we did this. I'm not sure what my boy Patriots football breakdown was, but unfortunately, I guess it didn't work out. But still, nonetheless, we had a really great discussion, guys, and I hope that we were able to break this down, each position, give some overall thoughts for you guys, and kind of where things are headed as we enter roster cutdowns and as we enter week 1 of the regular season. I'll be dropping more content for you guys shortly. Again, nonetheless, I appreciate you all for being here. I appreciate everybody who gave back and donated to the chat today. And if everybody can do your boy a favor before we end the chat and leave a like on this video if you have not already, and subscribe to the channel for all of your New England Patriots news, it would mean the absolute world to me. Again, if you weren't able to donate, or if you have donated, you just want to hit that like button for me. It helps out me and the YouTube algorithm tremendously. So you guys commenting, you guys liking, sharing the video helps me out a lot. So I would appreciate if you guys did that for me. But again, thank you all for being here. I appreciate you more than you could possibly imagine. Like I said, content will be dropping for you soon. We'll be going live, more this week. We'll be talking about joint practices, the final preseason game against the Giants. But nonetheless, I will have you covered for everything like always. I'm Colby Cochran with Patriots Global. Go Pats.